Three straight road losses for the Bolts after opening up a tough trip with a road victory. They've got a couple games at home coming up. How can the Lightning turn things around?
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Josh Sperber here, thanking all of you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if your team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, then this is the show for you. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that $5 bet. Check out FanDuel.com to get started. And we'll get started today by recapping the Lightning's loss against the St. Louis Blues. The Bolts got the first goal of the game. That came in the second period after a back-and-forth first. Solid goalie play from both Binnington and Vasilevsky, who stands now to become the fastest to 300 at home. Meanwhile, Jordan Binnington with a nice game that got him to second in the Blues win list. 149th victory for Binnington, making 21 saves. It was Nick Perbix who got the first goal in the second, but then three straight goals for the Blues before Victor Hedman put the Bolts within one. Nikita Kucherov got assists on both goals for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But I think the first thing that I want to address from this game is that second goal. Tarapchenko getting the puck from behind the net, and he was just wide open. And the Lightning defense is something that we've talked about, and you could just tell that when John Cooper was discussing the Lightning's defense, he was just upset about how it went, particularly in that second period, because, I mean, really all the goals were somewhat preventable, it seemed like. Sundqvist's goal, he just came streaking in untouched on the rebound of a shot. The Lightning just did not have anybody crashing, and, you know, that's something that is going to upset a head coach of a team. It just didn't seem like the Lightning were putting in the same effort that the Blues were on most plays, and Tarapchenko was wide open. That was the key goal of the game right there, close to the end of that second period. And, I mean, he could not have been more open. Just the Lightning just didn't have their heads on a swivel on defense, and no one picked him up. So he was wide open, able to take the easy shot for his first goal of the game. And it was the same with Kyrou on a breakaway, but he was someone else that just kind of leaked out to the side, and no one on the Lightning was anywhere near him to pick him up. And he just had a really easy lane on goal. I think the Lightning just need to do a better job of keeping their heads on a swivel, locking down their men, and shutting them down. I think the Blues definitely got into too many lanes on the attacking side of the puck, and the Lightning didn't capitalize the same way. Tampa certainly had some good shot attempts, and I don't think there was a major difference in how Binnington played and how Vasilevsky played. I think both of the goalies played really strong in net. The difference was the defense around them. And the fact is, the Blues just played better defense. It's that simple. I think a big positive, though, for the Lightning is the penalty kill. You know, even though they only did have, I think they had one power play opportunity. They had three penalty kill opportunities. And anytime you can put a bagel on the board on the power play is a good thing. They won the majority of the faceoffs. But, I mean, this was a game that doesn't really seem to be a dominant game if you look at the numbers. But, I mean, the Blues really just won the battle in just about everything except for penalty minutes and faceoffs. Even on shots on goal, everything else, though, the Blues had the advantage. And I mean, I think I still think defensively, just picking up men in key moments was something the Lightning just didn't do that well, and that's something that need to be fixed. You hope that it's an easier game against the Flyers, who have struggled. I mean, not just this year, but the last couple of years. 4-8-1. They have among the worst record in the league, right down there with the Sharks and the Predators. So you'd hope that it's a rebound game for Tampa. I think that's something that's just needed. You have a good start to the road trip, and it just the wheels kind of fell off after that. And John Cooper was asked, after the game, about what really, what could be done to, replicate the success of that Avalanche game versus the rest of the road trip. And he just kind of sarcastically said, score more goals than the other team. I mean, he knew that the Lightning had their chances in this game. There were a couple of shots, particularly one in that second period that Eric Chernak almost assisted on, that the Lightning could have had. They had their chances. They just missed some of the opportunities on offense. And with the way that the goalies played and with the way that the offenses played on both teams, I think it was pretty comparable efforts. But, just Binnington got to one more than Vasilevsky did. And I think the Blues defense definitely played a tighter game than Tampa as well. And, if your defense is getting outperformed, if you're not covering the zones you're supposed to, if you're losing men in the offensive zone, you're not going to win games, plain and simple. And the Lightning, I just didn't do a good enough job of keeping their eye on their men. I think that the defense is something that we've been talking about a lot, and it's been the most inconsistent part of the Lightning season so far. The Lightning's offensive attack is going to be there. They are tied for fourth with the Florida Panthers for most goals scored in the NHL so far this season. But they're also seventh in the league in goals allowed. And, it's great to see the Lightning offense is firing on all cylinders. 48 goals in 13 games is pretty darn good. 43 goals allowed in the same amount of games, less good. But, still only the seventh most in the league. I mean, it could be worse. But, it's very clear what the Lightning need to do to get back on track. It is, the offense, I think, even without Brayden Point, the offense looks solid. He's definitely someone that the Lightning are going to want to get back soon. We'll talk about that later on when we're looking at the different lines. Some line changes definitely happened with Brayden Point with his injury. And, I think we'll definitely get a bit of a closer examination on those lines. Maybe some more changes need to be made. Some more tinkering needs to be done for the Lightning to maximize their offensive and their defensive potential. But, I think the defense is definitely what needs to step up. That has not been, I don't think that's been lost on any of you guys. It's certainly well known around the Lightning locker room. I think that the defense just needs to kind of tighten up. Victor Hedman talked about the team not playing a complete enough game against St. Louis, and that's something that's going to need a change at home. But the rest of the month, the Lightning have a pretty favorable schedule in terms of home games. You have just 3 road games remaining for the rest of November, and 7 of the 10 home games of the 10 games in November for Tampa are going to be played at Amalie Arena in November. And, obviously that's going to be balanced out at some point in the schedule. The Lightning did start with 3 road games, so it's an even, it's pretty even, just one more home game than a road game this month. But having that extra home game is going to help the Lightning because they've just been that much better at home this year. 1 home loss so far for Tampa. They're 4-1-0 at home, but 3-5-0 on the road. And, they're going to get their chances on the road once again. I think they've got Pittsburgh in and Columbus, which are I think two winnable games for their next two on the road, and then Nashville, who they've already beaten once this season. So you've got three winnable road games. I think the Lightning are going to need to win all those for the rest of the month, just to show that they can. I'd expect the Lightning to have a better end to the month than start, with more games at home and three pretty winnable games on the road. But obviously, anything can happen, and we're gonna get more into that. And when we come back, talk about the Lightning's home versus road woes so far in 2024. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in place even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. And if you do sign up today, you get $50 when you play just 5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, where each Tuesday, Prize Pick discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Check out the app today on Apple and Google, anywhere you get your apps. Down and use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Back here on Locked On Lightning, and it has been a tale of two seasons in some ways for Tampa Bay. We've been one of, if not the best team at home so far in 2024. One of a small handful of teams with just one loss at home thus far. On the road, it's been a little bit different. 3-5-0 has them on the lower end of average in terms of the Lightning's road record. And I'm just trying to figure out what has been done different. I mean, it's not like the Lightning come and game plan, that much differently at home versus on the road. I mean, I think the home crowd advantage at Amalie Arena is certainly nothing to be understated. It is a fantastic atmosphere at Amalie Arena. The fans really get into it. The in-house production, I think, does a good job of keeping the fans involved, and the team has been so good over the past couple of years that the Lightning really do have a dedicated fan base. So that certainly does help at home. But I mean, especially in this Blues game yesterday, they just seem to step behind today. And I feel like that has been the case for a lot of those road games. And I mean, you look at some of the wins, and against Colorado, they looked composed. But, that 8-5 game against New Jersey was chaotic. Carolina looked dominant to open the season. Ottawa, less so. And they were pretty much blown out by Toronto. So, it just doesn't seem like you've had road games that look similar for Tampa Bay, whereas at home, really, other than the loss against Minnesota, it's been a pretty similar formula: an early hot start and just a consistent finish. I think they slipped up a little bit against Nashville, which is going to happen sometimes when you're playing against a former franchise icon who just knows the team and is able to get things done in that arena. Um, there's definitely been, some more minor slip ups at home for the Lightning. I'm not trying to say that they've played perfectly at home because they haven't, but you can just tell that they're a lot sharper at Amalie Arena and a lot more comfortable than they are away from home. And that's normal. That is to be expected. But it's just something the Lightning need to kind of even up. They have to play the same game. They have to get out to those same hot starts, and they have to play with the same fire under them on the road than they do at home, because it just has not looked like the same Lightning team playing in a lot of these road games versus playing at Amalie Arena. And I think this next home slate should be pretty telling of that. You've got what should be a streak snapping game against Philadelphia, and then a full week off before they play two of the toughest teams in the league at this point. New Jersey has 18 points. Point wise, they're tied for first, but Carolina's got 4 games in hand on New Jersey. No team in the NHL has played more than the Devils so far. They are the only team with 15 games played so far in the season. And they come into town after Winnipeg takes the league's best record into Amalie Arena a week from tomorrow. So those are 2 tough games against teams they've already played. Winnipeg won on Sunday, but that was a winnable game for the Lightning. The Lightning had leads. The Lightning had a 2-0 lead in that game. The Lightning tied the game in the third period, courtesy of Nikita Kucherov, and then the Jets just went on a 3-goal run to end it. I mean, some of that is just Winnipeg being, looking like the best team in the league right now. But some of that, I think, has to do with them just not being as comfortable on the road. You've seen the Lightning jump out to early leads in just about every single home game so far, and they've held on to those. Playing with the crowd willing them on certainly helps the Lightning when they're at Amalie Arena, and you can absolutely tell. And they just need some similar kind of juice on the road. And some of the differences I kind of understand. I think, especially after everything that's happened in the Tampa Bay community with the Hurricanes, I think it definitely just means more to play at Amalie Arena right now. I mean, the Tampa community is still kind of rebuilding from just 2 devastating hurricanes. And, the Lightning definitely take that to heart when they're playing at home. They're still doing all their Florida Strong fundraisers and really stepping up in the communal time of need here in Tampa Bay. So, I mean, I understand why it just means more at home, but, they still got to play 40 games on the road as well. And they need to play with that same fire, or it's just going to be a really lopsided home versus road split for Tampa Bay this season. That's not conducive to success. This is a Lightning team that expects to make the playoffs. That is the pedigree that they have earned over the last couple of years. And at the very early stage of the season right now, the Lightning are in playoff position, and that's great. But it's November. A lot can change on that front, and they just need to balance things out at home versus the road. I don't know if changing the lines had something to do with it. I mean, the Lightning are clearly suffering from Brayden Point's injury. That something the guys talked about after the game. He's just a tough guy to miss. But there are players that can and did in some ways step up in times of injury. I think Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel did really well in that first line. I mean, putting them 2 together, they're going to succeed just about anywhere. But, with a key player, leading leading goal scorer last season in Brayden Point, having him on the bench is going to hurt you. That's just going to happen when you have a talented player like that missing time due to injury. It's going to sting. But I think, the Lightning saw how they can play without him. They saw how the team can work without one of their stars. And now they can make some adjustments when the Flyers come into town in a couple of days. So I think, some adjustments definitely have to be made, but I think as a team, the Lightning just need to kind of forget where they're playing in some sense. You still want to build off the crowd energy at home, yes, but the road games are just as important. And the Lightning need to start picking up some of those. And we'll talk more about that next, in the next couple of weeks when the Lightning go back on the road. Because as I mentioned, the next 3 games the Lightning have are a little bit spaced out over the next few weeks and all at home. So that is a big chance for the Lightning to gain some ground in 3 games that I think the Lightning can win all of. I'd expect to take at least 2 from this upcoming trip, but some line changes might have to do with who wins and might help the Lightning get a couple extra wins. Last couple of weeks, I have been just having enough with my back problems. I needed to go find a place to just get them fixed once and for all, so I can just be more comfortable on a day-to-day basis. And I found The Joint. They have 23 locations in the Tampa Bay area and are certainly the best chiropractor that I've ever gone to. They have really nice, friendly staff who are very knowledgeable in their field and very helpful in terms of just diagnosing the problem areas and telling you what you can do to fix them. They gave me a very detailed stretching program that I've been on since my first session, and the program has really helped minimize my back pain. So you can get your first visit for $19 if you go to Buccaneers.com, fans, contests, and promotions, and you can get that visit for just $19 at one of the Joint Chiropractic's 23 Tampa Bay area location. So if you're in the Tampa Bay area and you need to get some pain managed, get some work done on your back or something, I'd recommend going to the Joint Chiropractic. Final segment of the day as the Lightning prepare for a 3-game homestand. The biggest differences in lines over the game for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And some of that was expected. Brayden Point getting hurt is obviously going to shuffle things up. You're going to move some guys from line to line. And, let's just kind of break those down and see what kind of effect they had on the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think the defensive lines did not really change. I don't think we need to look at those too closely. I think Hedman and Moser on the same line is always a good idea. That third line, though, is still kind of in flux, I think. I think the players, it's not that I think the players are going to change all that much on the third line. It's just, with the younger lines there, you have less experience from Perbix or Radish going with Emil Lilleberg, who's in his first full NHL season. And that is honestly the only I don't want to say problem area because that just seems a little too harsh, but it's just not as that Lilleberg line is just not as efficient as those top 2 lines. And I think that's to be expected when you have a pretty veteran heavy line on particularly your second line, but with Victor Hedman there, that makes any line a vet line, no matter the fact that Moser's in his 3rd full season, 4th overall in the NHL. You've got more experience on those top 2 lines, and that certainly helps. And it's just that third line, I think, on defense that just needs to step up. Offensively, the first 2 lines have looked solid, but with Brayden Point out, the first line was changed almost entirely. Jake Gensel switched down to the second line to keep the team of Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel together and Nikita Kucherov on the right wing. And that was a scenario that I didn't really think about, moving Gensel down with Point out to really switch up that second line, and moving Nick Paul up and moving Connor Geekie back down. But we're going to talk first about that updated first line of Hagel, Cirelli, and Nikita Kucherov, which I think was a brilliant move. I think that, Cirelli and Hagel together have been a pretty unstoppable tandem so far this season. I love putting them next to Kucherov on that first line. You have, three guys that can just move the puck really well and some dangerous scores, namely in Hagel and Kucherov. That's definitely the Lightning putting their best foot forward on the first line in terms of team chemistry. Is Gensel maybe a better player than Hagel is at the left wing or Cirelli at the center? Yeah, probably. But I think it's just the fact that Hagel and Cirelli have been playing so well together that I really like that Cooper did not split them up, that he kept them together when he's going to have to make some changes. You got to work Gage Gonzalez in there because he got his first NHL action of the season since he made his debut late last year. So I like that they kept the most of one line together when they had to, patch up that first line. And because Kucherov could play with anybody. And the Anthony Cirelli was talking after the game about, everyone has played with everybody at some point, really kind of playing off the, how meaningful the line pairings really are. But I think in that first line, that was one of them where that was just the pairing where, you saw, they've played with Kucherov before, but I think the key there was keeping Cirelli and Hagel together. I'd like to see something similar if Point is unable to go on Thursday against Philadelphia. No new news on his injury status. No updates on Brayden Point status. He just has a lower body injury that forced him out of Tuesday's game. Unclear if he is going to suit up for Thursday, and the Lightning not practicing on Wednesday, gives him an extra day of rest and hopefully a chance to suit up for the game against Philadelphia. Now, the second line was a bit of a surprise. We talked about Gensel moving down. Getting him to play with more players on the team, I think, can only be good. He's still the new man on the totem pole for the most part, big signing in the offseason, but he still has to get ingratiated with the rest of the team. I mentioned Cirelli's quote about everyone playing with everybody. With a new guy like Gensel, that doesn't ring as true. So I think putting him with the second line is just another way to help ingratiate him with the team, just help get him accustomed to the life in Tampa Bay and, see how he can fare with the rest of them. I think obviously he's a first liner for the most part when everyone is at full go, but I don't hate them bumping him down a line just to have him playing with some of the other guys. What I do like the most, though, is Mitchell Chaffee getting bumped up to that second line. I'm a firm believer in rewarding particularly younger players with extra playing time, with extra shifts when they've earned it. Mitchell Chaffee has absolutely earned it. Going into the season, he's expected to be a third or fourth line guy that doesn't make much of an offensive impact. We're 13 games in, and he's already at his career marks in his young NHL career. And, obviously 4 goals over the course of a full season isn't a lot. 4 goals in 13 games where he had 4 in 30 last year is pretty impressive. So I love seeing Mitchell Chaffee get rewarded, and I was happy to see him play pretty solid with that second line. And that means Connor Geekie had to go back down to the third line. I like him getting back to his center spot. I think, that's obviously a position they're going to want to keep trying him in, but he's adaptable, and I don't think him getting bumped down had anything to do with, some kind of demerit or something against the way he's played. But, still got to move him around. He's the rookie, so he, probably should get moved around more than anybody on these Lightning lines. So that I think, but he still worked well on the third line. Gage Gonzalez getting on the third line, just getting a little extra playing time because I think he has a time limit on his NHL place right now. When Brayden Point comes back, I can't imagine that the Lightning will keep him in Tampa. I think he'll go back to Syracuse. So getting a little bit extra time with that third line and then moving Isimont down to line number 4, I think made it made them seem just a little bit more productive. And, you didn't get a lot of goal production out of those bottom two lines. And that's, I think, something that needs to improve when the Lightning go back home on Thursday and take on the Philadelphia Flyers. But right now, we are going to be done with today's show. We'll have more to come tomorrow when we preview the matchup against the Philadelphia Flyers, and I'll be at that game providing you guys content on our Twitter page. But thank you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen today. Now for your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steele and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And make sure to give us a like, a follow, a subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple. We are there everywhere, and we really appreciate your guys' support because this podcast is for you, the fans. So thank you for supporting Locked On Lightning. Once again, I'm Josh Sperber. Enjoy your Wednesday, and we'll talk at Amalie Arena tomorrow.